Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree?
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend, and what a wonderful time to start a new project. Yes, I just finished up the 2 Voyager build and posted that last night. So when I am picking the next project, I always say, okay, what's the thing I got tired of doing last time? So I wanted to pick a project that had absolutely no decals, absolutely no wiring or lighting, and it was just a basic build. And I have a week and some change to kill, so I figured, what the heck, I'm going to do something that scares the living bejesus out of me. And here it is. Of course, it's going to be ripe with puns because of the subject matter. I'm thinking of oh, there's just so many. The mind is whirling. So let's not waste any time. I'll give you a little bit of an intro. Year or so ago, maybe 2 now, I got a 3D printer, and immediately that opened me up to, hey Lou, would you print something for me? And which I don't mind. I mean, I like the process of printing things and watching them print and doing it successfully and all that, even more so than building sometimes. But a friend of mine who is a fantastic figure modeler does wonderful does wonderful paints of busts and figures, and it is the one area that, well, I'll say it's the second area, because I really don't I don't have a brain for doing the typical IPMS topics, the ships, the tanks, the things like that. I don't have a brain for doing that. I prefer my fantasy rather than trying to make realistic biplanes and stuff like that. But my friend is an excellent figure modeler. Now, the figures that I dabble in tend to be more monsters, creatures, aliens, things like that. Very rarely do I do anything that is meant to be realistic or attractive. I was quite surprised when I entered my Jack Burton figure at Wonderfest last year that I got an award for it. So maybe there's a future in that for me. But he had, like I say, he does these wonderful exotic creatures and beauty mold. I mean, was it glamour figures? I'm trying to think of the term when you paint somebody who's meant to look beautiful. But he does that kind of work, and he wanted me to print some things for him because he does not have a printer. I do have a printer, so funny how that works out. And I said, sure, but you know, here's the deal. He buys the figures, he downloads them legally, he gets them from the creator, and he pays me for my time to print, and then, which I discount, and then I make a copy for myself. That's the deal. He gets a copy, I get a copy, and frankly, the way it goes is that the way that learning to print things, I might have a part that is printed, but there's a defect in it. Some part didn't get supported right, or it came out mutated or whatever, or I just screwed up the supports on it. So that goes in my pile, and then I take that lesson and I print him a good one. I pride myself on not giving him any parts that I wouldn't be ashamed of, that I wouldn't be proud of. So he gets a good set, I get a set. Mine are usually made of the mutant parts, but I can putty and patch and that kind of stuff. So he is working on, or he's been downloading or buying these figures that are large scale figures of the women from the movie Sucker Punch, which is a Zack Snyder film, which means a lot of things. But I've had this one figure. The first figure in the series was Baby Doll, and that was played by Emily Browning in the movie, and dressed in a Catholic schoolgirl type of Sailor Moon-ish type of uniform, costume. That is the figure that I'm doing, and it scares me to death for 2 very good reasons. A, it's meant to be a realistic, even a hyper-realistic figure of a woman who is meant to be attractive and not green. And that's what's got me bugged. So I am going to be learning how to make a glamorous paint job on this figure. And if if it screws up too badly, I can always run off and print just that part again. But I've had this thing printed for about a year now, and it also is instructive in because I've always been worried about the long-term shelf life of 3D printed kits. Are they going to shrink over time? Are they going to crack over time? That sort of thing, because you can run into problems depending on how well you have cured your resin and how long you have post-cured it and all this stuff about washing it off and putting it under the UV light and all that. But these have had at least a few months to age, and everything is coming together pretty well. But let me take you to the desk and show you, because she's a big baby. Okay, we're going to start off on the base. Here are some of the parts that aren't attached. None of this has been built. It's just simply fit together. So we're going to go from the ground up, and we're going to show you that yes, this is a big baby. And the subtitle of my video is Lou Plays with Dolls. I don't know, but this is a whopping, let's see, this is 19 inches tall, not counting the katana, which I believe the katana case, which I believe sticks up even a little bit more. So 19 inches tall, and knowing that Emily Browning is not that tall of an actress, I'm willing to say that's quarter scale, but it's probably closer to third scale because she's not that tall of an actress. But this is, pull up the camera. I mean, it's a very good likeness. The sculpt on it is very good. But this is the kind of work that your 3D printer can produce. I'm going to pop that. Now, like I said, all of this is just kind of setting together. None of it is glued. It could all fall off like a horrible, horrible accident. So I am pulling the parts out. But look at the detail that can be printed in if you have got your printer dialed in just right. I mean, down to the fact that there is a pattern texture of the fabric. Now, the big thing you learn about printing when you start to learn about printing is what areas are going to show and what areas are not. That is a particularly bad part of the print that I would never give to anybody else, but it's not so bad for me. I can work with that. Plus the fact that one of the things you discover is when a part covers it, it doesn't really matter how ugly that was because it's got a part that covers it. And that's some people will obsess about getting a perfect print, but if you don't realize that half of it's going to be covered up with the next part that goes over it, it doesn't really matter. You can figure out where your supports need to go just by looking at how the piece fits with the next piece. But I wanted you to see, I mean, this is just the hilt of the katana, and look at the detail that's in there. The blade itself has a sculpted detail in it that is going to show up a lot more once I start putting paint on things. Believe it or not, though, take the hip section off. See, none of this has been glued in. The feet are in very thick pegs on the base. That's why they're. See, that's how big the pegs are. But this base took a day to print. Just the base itself took a day and change to print. So the time investment in it is bigger really than the monetary investment, because each of these plates, we'll say one batch of printing was this and this at the same time, printing on the same plate. That was about a day's work right there, or day's work. It was a day of me sitting there watching the printer. once you set it up right and set it to go, the printer probably, you know, does its own job. It's not, you just have to make sure you keep the fluid going. But this is going to be fun. It's going to be a good experiment in painting techniques, painting how to make fabrics look like fabric, how to make skin look like skin, how to make glue look like a fool. All these things are going to be things we will learn this week. I don't project it'll take, you know, forever and a day to do this job. See, this is the type of thing that I am worrying about, because these two resins were printed roughly the same time, but on two different printers, and they're two different resins. So how well they fit together after all this time is a question, and whether or not the seams are going to be too insurmountable to deal with. I'm sure there's going to be some putty work that's going to need to be done. But this is the project for the next little bit. So let's, without further ado, let's get to work. I need to get some sub-assemblying done, and then get the sections ready for primer. Okay, I believe I'm ready for the first assembly in this kit. I had to sand down the pins, the big block pins here. I'm sure back when everything was fresh they fit nice, but they were a little bit of a struggle to get together, and I think it's because again, two different resins. I have learned my lesson on this, and everything that is subsequent has been all of the parts have been printed with the same resin, and as close as possible to the same time and in the same temperature, so that it is all aging together. Gotta knock down some of these supports. The poor gal looks like she's got a little bit of cellulite going on because of the pock marks left by the supports. I try to see which parts of the kit are visible, which part of the where the focus is, and where the back is, and what might be covered with another part, and all that kind of stuff, so that I can put my supports in accordingly and not worry about covering over something vital. See a little spot here where it didn't quite print right. This is what I'm saying about what I mean when I say that my parts are the reject parts, and what I send my buddy is the good version. So as long as this took to print the first time, I'm certainly not going to reprint it just for that one little defect. Anything I can putty or paint over or cover up with something else, I certainly will do. And these organic shapes are easier to, they're more forgiving than a Starship hull or something. But the legs are ready to glue in, and then the feet will glue into the legs. It's funny how that works, but that's how it works. But rather than using just CA, I think I'm going to make up some 5-minute epoxy and do them that way. That will give me a more secure joint, I think, and plus it'll help splash into the parts that might need to have some gap filling done. And then let's see, logically I should be painting some of these sections separately before I put them together, and then there are some parts that I cannot paint until they're put together. I cannot put this collar on, for example, until I have put the rope in that supports the katana, and I can't do that until I've painted the underneath. So I'm figuring out the logistics of this is a job in and of itself. Okay, now the fun begins. I've got a lot of sculpting that I need to do to repair some nicks and knocks and gaps. Nothing too unexpected there. Like I said, this printed resin is kind of fragile and has a tendency to shatter. You can't carve it. It's brittle, that's the word I was looking for. So I've got some holes to patch in some of these gaps, and I'm just going to go around with the epoxy sculpt and tighten up the seam here, the gap between the top of the hose and where it goes into the actual leg portion. So just gonna make some long snakies and fit them in there and then feather them out. Okay, so I've just done a bit of sculpture work on the top edge of the hose there, or the stockings where it meets the leg, and I'm careful not to get any of the epoxy sculpt down into the hose themselves because it has a pattern to it. I went ahead and printed this in white, figuring they would be regular hose, but then checking, or that you would see skin through it, but checking the references, these are actually dark blue, so it really doesn't matter. Of course, the flesh color here matters, and then the dark blue skirt and the flesh on the tummy. Now, I'm just feathering that in. I can sand that once it dries, but you know, if I can smear it out now, that means that much less sanding when it does set up. So I'm just helping to define the line, the parting line there between the stockings and the leg. So we're going to let that set for a while. And I've also attached the blade of the katana to the hand, so that's one big chunk now. And I'm taking the opportunity, this is the cloak, or the cape, if you will, that goes on the top here. And I sanded it up, and I think I may have sanded too much of it away. So what I'm doing is I'm going to take the opportunity and maybe run another print of this. But my big issue now is trying to find a way to make this fit around in such a way that when it is glued in, everybody will be happy and good. So it seems like everything else in this model, or in this figure, kind of radiates out from this top part, so I need to get it painted first so that I can attach the other parts to it. The cape actually fits down over top of all of this, and that's where I'm running into an issue. It's a little bit thick, so I want to go in here and sand some out of the back, and I may have taken off too much, so I wanted to cover myself just in case by printing another one. I think this will work just fine, but then the whole thing fits. Again, I'm going to have to learn to get further back with the camera because this is a big baby, and it fits in like that, with the head, of course, going on like that. So I'm going to let that set up and maybe see if I can get some navy blue on that top today. Okay, because I'd like to get some color on this week, I've got everything primed. Now, the only places I didn't prime with the gray are the obvious skin places. The arms here, the forearms, the face, of course, is which was printed in white. I didn't want to prime that or put a gray over top of it. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of printing it in white. I want those white undertones when I am painting the skin. I just think it's going to be easier than trying to cover over gray. Now, the only place I could not do that was on the hip piece here because of the size of it. I had to print in a large printer with the gray resin, and that only is the upper thighs and the tummy there. The long legs, which I think I already said that, which I thought were I thought I was misremembering them as being flesh tone with a pantyhose on it, or a stocking. Is that those are actually black stockings, so there's no problem with those being primed in gray. But I've got to, I think I probably will put a white primer under the tummy area and the upper leg before I even put the flesh tone primer on, which is what I'm going to use, just so that they're both going over a white. But the first thing I want to do is take some of this field blue, which is a dark blue, and spray in the area of the skirt and the jacket here. And finding the colors for this is best to go to reference pictures online and behind the scenes stuff and promotional images, not from the film itself, because it's Zack Snyder and I don't know what poor trauma that boy experienced as a child that frightened him off of using actual color. I don't know whether he was frightened by a rainbow as a small lad or what, but the fact that he put so dang many color filters over everything. First he desaturates everything, and then he puts a sickly green filter over it. Either he was way too influenced by the Matrix or is colorblind. I'm not sure. But see, I'm going to show you some of the reference pictures that I've got. Okay, this is a promotional poster. It's stylized. It has some of the same problems. It is. It's got the colorization going on. But we can see that this is more of a navy blue with a medium gray and navy blue accent. Looks like white stripes here on the cuffs, and whether these are white or navy or medium gray depends on your picture reference. Of course, bright blonde hair, fair skin. This headband shifts between black and navy blue depending on what reference you see. I think I'm going to make it black to tie into the black stockings. Let's go to the next reference picture. That's a picture of the katana. Let's see, the shoes, the gun with the details. Now this is a costume. This was from a costume company that were selling the Halloween costume of it, but you get an idea of some of the coloration. Obviously the brown harness there. Here you can see that that's more of a, well, I hate to say it, but a dark ghost gray. And this is more of a lighter gray with the blue stripes. The cuffs and the stripes in the skirt, not quite white. Brown buttons. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Now here's a still from the film. Again, the coloring on this one is almost normal. In the scene where she's using this costume, the dream sequence or the fantasy sequence, it takes place in the winter, and I noticed a heavy use of pink on the cheeks and on her nose and ears, like it's very cold. You would imagine that your nose and your cheeks would be very cold. So now this looks like just a promotional behind the scenes shot. Again, in normal lighting, you can see how rosy the cheeks are, how blonde the hair is, almost white. Oddly enough, the kit doesn't have this accent on her wrist. Her wrist, let me check again, is mostly normal. It doesn't have that bandaging on here. No, I'm feeling through the tape here. It's a straight wrist without any of this kind of stuff. So I'm wondering whether that needs to be sculpted on or whether I should leave without it. But here you can see the black stockings, the off black shoes with the brown heels, chrome on the pistol. This is more of a medium gray, and the striping here is more of a medium gray. So I think this is going to be where I'm going to trust my reference picture on that. And let's see what else we've got. Yeah, this is another, this must have been, it looks like a color corrected shot, but again, very pink on the cheeks. I think we're gathering enough information here to see. Here's that wrapped wrist that is not obviously on the mock costume. Now this is actually somebody else's build of this same kit. And sometimes I find this handy just to see what other mistakes people have made, or how they may have treated something that I would go differently with, or things that I might agree with. Here we can see the gray on the bandana here. Didn't quite go as pink on the cheeks. The hair is a little bit too yellow. But everything else, see, there's no bandage on the wrist. But it you know, like I say, it helps to see what other people have done. This is the same. The next few shots are the same, but from different angles. But you can see how they painted in the details. I mean, if my skin tones turn out as good as this, I will be very happy. Okay, and there's more. There's some detail on the sword and the shoes. It's one thing you don't really appreciate until you start putting primer on these things, is how detailed the textures are. And it really makes you cautious that you don't sand all that detail off when it comes time to get ready to paint it. And then here are the CG versions of the same kit. Now this is from the Hot Toys doll. Normally I don't use toys as a reference, but sometimes they can help you with your color choices on costuming, figuring that they've done their research and you can kind of piggyback on their research. Here we go with the bandaged wrist. And let's see, that's more poses of the same thing. This was another promotional poster. It's got the green tint going on it, but you can kind of see some of the detailing. And here's that snow I was talking about, and how that would factor in. And that's the next figure in the line, which I have already printed, but this is Sweet Pea. Okay, so now we're back on the table, and I think the first thing I'd like to do would be to start laying some of that dark blue, like I said, on the skirt and on the jacket, just so I can get a balance. I'll reassemble it, and then we'll see how our tones are looking. Okay, this is where we're going to cease for today, I think. What I've done basically is put in just the rough, broadest strokes of color, just to see how everything is looking. And I've got the top even bluer than the skirt, just to try out yet another base color. But this will give you an idea of the tones and the shades between everything. I didn't even do any hardline masking except around the skirt there. It's just massing colors in. Everything has to be touched up and basically painted in. But I've got the broad stroke colors down so that you can see, or so that I can see. What you do with it is your own business, but I need to see how the different tones are feeding off of each other, and what needs to be lightened up and what is okay and what needs to be darkened. I could tell that the blue really needs to be a bit darker. I'm thinking I might want to almost do it as a blue black and then spray in some highlights. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a lot of airbrushing on this. I mean, I can certainly do some highlighting, but I think what's going to serve me better is to do just a lot of hand painting and maybe do an airbrushing as an accent, like maybe rouge on the cheeks, or a pinkness on the belly or something. But I think if I go in and do maybe the dark folds and then treat the fabric differently than the skin, maybe the fabric will get more airbrushing than the skin will. And there goes, see, everything is just being held on by wishes and gravity here. But I can see going in here with an airbrush and just spraying the darker folds of the shirt there, but doing a lot of the other work by hand. See, I had the hose going so well, and then I stuck my stupid thumb in the paint I was using for the skin and grabbed a hold of the leg there. But things like The blade here, I can put a pin wash over those details in the blade to help them come out. I can't see, I know I'm going to make a bold prediction. I can't see this taking more than next week, but we're going to have to try it little by little to see how easy it's going to be. The weird thing about it is that you're going to have to paint the parts and then add them to it. You can't really build the whole thing and then expect to paint it, because there's so many undercuts and you know, behinds of things that you would never be able to get to if you were putting the whole thing together and then painting it. And that's going to do it for this very, very short week one, first couple of days on the baby doll figure. If I can very gingerly pull off the head. There you go. As you can see, this is quite out of my comfort zone. This is the easy part, painting in the broad strokes of the colors. And as we get into doing all the detail work, that's where I'm really going to start panicking. So I think I am probably more comfortable doing the clothing first, and then doing the flesh tones around that. But I don't know. You know, paint in the gun and then paint the hand around the gun. That's going to be the tricky part. I'm just disassembling it now so that it doesn't fall apart and crash down. But the thing about 3D printed parts is they are, for lack of a better word, they're kind of perfect. If they were designed right in the first place, and your printer printed them correctly, they're pretty dead on, and there isn't no part of it that you know is not visible. You have to paint the whole thing and then put it in place. So we're going to let these guys sit. I'm going to probably go out and get some different blues tomorrow, the dark blues, and we're going to pick this up next week. So until then, be good, be good to each other, be good to yourselves, be safe, be smart, and be back next time.